What's up guys, welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you've seen some of my previous videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the best decks in Pokemon TCG Pocket currently. It's also one of the most fun decks to play, so I definitely recommend everyone giving it a try. One of the best parts about this deck is that it actually counters most of the current meta decks. So first we'll be taking a look at how the deck's actually structured, and then I'll show you one of my games against a Celebi EX deck. If that interests you, then definitely stick around. If these Pokemon TCG Pockets videos interest you, please drop a like, a comment, a subscribe, whatever. It all helps me out. I really appreciate it. Alright, enough of that intro, let's get into the fun stuff. I'm going to assume a lot of you watching this video play the game and have in the past looked up best decks or most fun decks, and a lot of the answers you'll receive will probably have pretty rigid guidelines on how to build the deck they're talking about. This deck, I feel, there is an optimized way to run it. However, I also feel like there's a lot of customization that you can do. The deck we're talking about today is based around Scolipede and Weezing. I think the only real requirements in this deck are the Scolipede line, the Weezing line, and Koga. I've played this deck with all different sorts of trainer cards. I've played this deck with a couple different additional Pokemon. I've played it without any additional Pokemon. And I think all versions of this deck are good, and they all pretty much counter a lot of the meta decks. So let's start with the meat of this deck, which would be the Scolipede line. First, we're going to have two Venipedes, which are the basic Pokemon, and it's pretty weak. 60 HP. It only does 20 damage with 1 energy cost. Next, its evolution, Whirlipede, which is much better than Venipede. Whirlipede gets 90 HP, which is not nothing. It's pretty good. And then its attack still only costs 1 energy, still does 20 damage, but it applies the poison effect to the opponent's Pokemon when attacked. Next, you're going to have your two Scolipedes. This is the heavy hitter of the deck. Venoshock, its only attack, requires only 2 energy, and it does 70 damage, but if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, it does 50 more for a total of 120. But when you hit for that 120, it only happens because the opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, and therefore it takes another 10 damage when the turn is over. So in reality, it does 130 damage. This number is very important because it eliminates many different Pokemon. Pikachu EX, Celebi EX, Starmie EX, and most importantly, Mewtwo EX and Mew EX. Now you say, it does 130 damage, how does it take out a Mewtwo EX? Well, it does an extra 20 because Darkness is the type that Psychic Pokemon are weak to. Setting up that poison to enable Scolipede to do that large amount of damage can be done by Whirlipede, but it can also be done by another Pokemon that you'll have on your team, which is Weezing. Now, to get your Weezing on the battlefield, you have to first put in a Coughing. Currently, right now, I'm running both versions of Coughing. I still haven't decided which version I like the most, so I'm just running both. The standard one from Genetic Apex has 70 HP. It does 20 damage with 1 energy and has 1 retreat cost. The one from Mythical Island also has 70 HP, also requires 1 energy to attack, but its attack doesn't do any damage. It just pulls another Coughing from your deck onto your bench. This one has 2 retreat costs though. The Coughings are less important than its evolution, Weezing, which has 110 HP. It does 30 damage with its attack, Tackle, which requires 1 energy, but Weezing has an ability called Gas Leak, which allows you to, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned. If you're going to be attacking with Weezing, you're going to apply Gas Leak and then do Tackle for 40 damage total. Unless it's against a Psychic Pokemon, it would be 60 damage. Now, the awesome mechanic of this deck is that you have Koga. So, what you can do is put Weezing into your active spot, Gas Leak the opponent's Pokemon, use Koga, slot in Scolipede, and attack with Scolipede. After you Koga'd out your Weezing, you can then put your Coughing back onto your bench and evolve it back into Weezing on your next turn. Koga is incredibly useful for retreating your Weezing when it's low HP or for setting up your Scolipede. And for the other cards I currently use to round out the deck, one would be Farfetch, which is great at doing damage in the early game. Next would be Pokeball to draw out your Coughings and Venipedes. Professor's Research to draw 2 more cards. Sabrina to put in an opponent's Pokemon you want to take out. Leaf to help retreat your Scolipede and or Weezing. Leaf is incredibly useful because sometimes you don't draw a Koga, and Scolipede has 2 energy retreat costs, so this preserves your energy. Not sure how useful blue is at the moment. I might swap it out for another leaf. Now that I've described the mechanics of this deck, let's take a look at it against a Celebi EX deck. So my hand to start is a Coughing, a Pokeball, a Weezing, a Scolipede, another Weezing, and a Koga. My opponent plays a Celebi, an Execute, and a Snivy. I draw another Coughing, I place it on my bench, I attach the energy to the initial Coughing, and I end my turn, since I already drew the other Coughing. What I really need in the following turn is either another Pokeball, a Professor's Research, or a Venipede. My opponent evolves his Execute into an Executor EX, evolves his Snivy into a Servine. He uses an X speed to remove his Celebi from the active spot and to place his Executor EX there. He attaches the energy to the Executor EX, and I could be in trouble if he flips heads here. I lucked out, he flipped tails, so my Coughing survives to the next turn. We pulled the Professor's Research, which is great. We're going to draw 2 cards here, hoping we get a Venipede. And we do. We also get a Whirlipede, which is the evolution of Venipede. That's great, since we already have Scolipede in our hand. We evolve our Coughing into a Weezing, evolve the other Coughing into a Weezing as well. We then apply the energy to our Venipede to enable the Scolipede to attack once it's fully evolved. We apply Gas Leak to the Executor EX, and then we attack it with Weezing's Attack Tackle, doing a total of 40 damage to the Executor. On to my opponent's turn. He plays Professor's Research, draws 2 cards, evolves Servine into Superior, and starts applying energy to Celebi. He then attacks with his Executor EX, this time drawing heads, which does 80 damage, and takes out my Weezing. A big blow in the beginning of the game. My opponent gains 1 point. I slot in our second Weezing. 10 damage gets done to Executor because it's still poisoned. We draw our Farfetch'd. I place him onto our bench. Evolve our Venipede into our Whirlipede. Attach an energy to Weezing. Apply Gas Leak. And attack again with Tackle, doing another 40 damage. So my opponent is going to play Erica and heal up his Executor EX. 50 HP. It's now sitting at 120. He places another Celebi on his bench. Places another energy on the original Celebi. Attacks again with Executor EX. This time landing Tails, only doing 40 damage to our Weezing, who will now sit at 70 HP. Now it's my turn. Executor is sitting at 110 HP. Our Weezing's at 70. We draw a leaf, and we have a big decision here to make. First, we are going to have to evolve our Scolipede, that's for sure. But what we really want to take out is not the Executor EX, it's the Celebi EX. We apply the second energy to our Scolipede, and we could use the Koga mechanic here. But, again, we're trying to go after the Celebi EX, so what we're just going to do is tackle again with the Executor EX, and hope that the coin flip gods are in our favor, and the Executor does not flip heads. Our opponent attaches another energy to the original Celebi. Now it has 3 on there, but with the Superior, that means 6. He doesn't slot a Celebi in, and he attacks the Executor again, this time flipping tails, still keeping our Weezing alive at 30 HP. The Executor is down to 60. We draw a Professor's Research. Again, we're trying to hold out for them to put their Celebi onto the battlefield. So we have the chance to either use Koga or not. And I decide to use him. We're going to slot in our Farfetch'd instead, though. We have the leaf, which means if we attach just 1 energy to our Weezing, we're able to retreat him. The Farfetch'd can survive a Executor attack as long as it doesn't flip heads. We attack with our Farfetch, leaving the Executor down to 10 HP, which means he's guaranteed to faint if he stays in the active slot. They decide to leave him out to preserve the 2 points and to slot the Celebi EX in, which is exactly what we wanted the opponent to do. They brought out their big guy before we brought out our big guy. He attacks Farfetch'd, which is exactly Farfetch'd's job here, to take the original Celebi hit and only give up 1 point. He lands 4 heads, which is a total of 200 damage, but doesn't matter. Farfetch did his job perfectly. 2 points for the opponent. We still have 0 points. We slot our Coughing in. We evolve it into Weezing. And then we have a choice. What trainer to play here? We know we're going to Gas Leak no matter what, so we might as well just apply that now. We can leave the Weezing out by just applying 1 energy. It's essentially a Koga because we already have the Scolipede powered up. We retreat the Weezing out, slot the Scolipede in, and hit him with a big Venoshock, which leaves it with 10 HP, but the poison takes him out. 2 points in our favor. Tie game, boys. And we have Scolipede in the active slot, 2 energy, full 140 HP. He brings in the Celebi EX. He applies that energy to the Celebi in the active slot. Uses his Erica to heal up his Executor. Then he attacks with Celebi, which only has 1 energy, but Superior's ability actually doubles it. We luck out here. He flips no heads, doing 0 damage to our Scolipede. We draw a Pokeball. We immediately use it. We pull another Venipede. We put it onto our bench. Now we have a decision to make on which supporter card to use. We could use Professor's Research to draw 2 cards, or we can use Sabrina to force him to slot in a different Pokemon other than the one he's attacking with. We decide to play the Sabrina, and he decides to put in his Superior. It's a gamble, but it's the Pokemon with the highest HP that he could choose from and would survive a normal Scolipede attack. We apply the energy to our Weezing and attack the Superior with Venoshock, doing 70 damage, leaving Superior at 40. The Sabrina put our opponent in a terrible position if he did not have either a Leaf or an X-Speed, since Superior takes 2 energy to retreat. He knows he's stuck in this spot, and he has no other choice but to concede. We get the victory, and Scolipede once again beats a Celebi EX deck. So guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, drop a comment, give me a subscribe. It really helps me out, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.